What's up guys, Multiplier here. What we're going to do today is make a snare from scratch. We're going to be doing it in Ableton, although the processes I'm showing you will be basically applicable to any DAW, DAW, call it what you like, digital audio workstation. But yeah, it'd be interesting just to kind of see my process, and I haven't really planned this. It's just going to be a case of, right, let's make a snare, let's see how we're going to go about this, and yeah, just kind of the workflow, my kind of thoughts as we are putting the whole thing together, which will be interesting, I think. Sweetness. So let's get going. Perfect. So I've already clicked the loop button. That's a good start up here. And the loop brace is already in the right place. So we are golden for snare preparations sorted. So we have the loop brace going around here, kind of 2 beats long. And then we can just kind of tweak the settings as the snare's playing over and over again, which would be cool stuff. Right, so let's start off with the kind of the fundamental note of the snare. It's best since I do if I kind of show you guys what I mean by that. So let's load up one of my favorite snares. Let's go ahead and find it. It'd be a good start. Oh, got electrocuted. That wasn't good. That wasn't good. Right, okay, ignore that. Layered. Some good ones in here. There you go, let's use this one as an example. This is the kind of snare I typically like. And this will be the kind of snare we're gonna make. So we've got this kind of snare dude, this dude here. Let's turn it down a touch. What we're gonna do is have a look at the spectrum of the frequencies and shit. So let's play it over and over again. So you see around 200 hertz here, pretty much bang on 200 in this case. We have kind of like a really resonant peak. Now that is, you see how if we look at this snare here, we have kind of almost like one dominating kind of waveform. That is that note there, and that looks like a sine wave to me. So we're gonna start off with a sine. It's a bit triangular as well. We might choose a triangle. Let's choose triangle or sine. We'll mix it up later. So yeah, we got that simple kind of fundamental note going on. We got a bit of distortion. We got you can see you got some sort of pitch down in the attack bit. As you see, it all gets kind of, the whole waveform gets kind of really tight up, which is some sort of cool attack bit going on. And then we've got this kind of noise tail. So that's gonna be what we're gonna be trying to do with the snare. And we're gonna start off with this fundamental note, which is around 200 hertz. That's what gives it that kind of punch and that kind of weight. And not all snares have that kind of vibe, but if it's a weighty snare, it will definitely have something going on. Anything from maybe 160 upwards to maybe 250 hertz, normally 200, which is cool. And I certainly think it's better to do it this way and just get your fundamental note kind of sorted instead of boosting 200 hertz later on and it just sounds a bit shit. So cool. So how are we going to do this? Let's pick some sort of synth to make it. Now I can use any synth for this, but I'm deciding we're going to use FM8 today just because I feel like it. You have a lot of control over the envelopes as well, which is always useful. So MIDI track, FM8. Right, so first thing we're going to do is probably get a note playing. So we are going to get a MIDI clip going. Drag, click, insert MIDI clip. Right. So over here, and I have no idea what note. I could probably look it up. What note 200 hertz is. Can't be bothered to look it up. We're going to improvise. Right. Click, drag, and then we're going to move this about. So this note is around 200-ish hertz. We can always tweak it later. Be nice and easy. Boom, G2, G unit, that'll do just fine. And now what we're going to do is, dying, right. Now what we're going to do is actually shape it a bit, which is cool stuff, right. What I have to do is do a click, open this up, and we can turn the volume up a bit. It's bare quiet and thing. That'll probably do just fine. And then, yeah, we're going to get some sort of shape to get to this thing going on. So FMA operators, we're using F. Let's turn that up. Let's turn it up to the max. F. Let's have a go. Sounds all right. What we're going to do now is kind of fucks about with the pitch. So we have that kind of pitch going down a bit for the attack. So that sounds like it's what you do with a kick drum to give it a bit of punch. So we're going to do it subtly with this because obviously it's not as drastic as it would be for a kick drum. A snare is kind of like a kick, but with some other kind of noise and stuff going on, and obviously at a different frequency. So I think you use this kind of thing in FM8. So let's have a go. Sounds lovely. Right, what we're going to do now is, remember we said it was going to be a triangle. At the moment it's a sine, so we're going to go to operators and choose triangle. Can turn key sync on. That sounds horrible. We might turn it to triangle later if it turns out once we've got everything else in there, triangles make sense. Right now, triangles be whack. So we've got a sine, which feels a bit snarey with the kind of the frequency and the punch, which is a good sign. But obviously it's really quiet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back to the rest of this later. So we're going to group it. Can we group it? Yeah, group tracks. Snare! Right, so that's our snare group. We're going to call this donk. For some reason I call the 200 hertz kind of fundamental note the donk. Because I haven't really heard anyone else give it a proper name other than the fundamental, but that's boring. So the donk, and now we're going to want some sort of noise type thing, because obviously you got the donk bit and then got some kind of noise / just texture that kind of trails out. So we could make it, or we could use a sample. What am I in the mood to do? Fuck it, let's make it. Again, why not? So let's load up another MIDI track, and we're going to use a synth. And Massive has some cool noise stuff. Whole bunch of noise options. So we'll turn off, or just kind of, we'll turn off the donk bit for now, or shall we? Yeah, we'll turn it off for now. And now we've got to create some noise. So similar sort of vibe. Let's just use the same MIDI note. That'll do just fine. Click. And yeah, I need to open up Massive, turn off the oscillators. Don't need them. They be getting in the way. Noise, right. So this is where we can get interesting. So it's probably the color wheel probably up here. Amplitude of the wave. Let's put the fourth one on there. Or do we need it on there? I can't remember. Let's have a look. Looks like we don't need to. Looks like the main envelope of the amplitude kind of affects the noise as well, which we could probably work out if we had a look at this. Oh, of course it does. Duh, brain. Let's click that. Not that that affects anything. It's just good practice. Right. So what we can do now is probably turn the amplitude up to a lot, maybe. Yeah, and you can always kind of turn this one up and down up here. And then we're going to choose a cool bit of noise, which is one of the reasons, in fact, the reason I chose massive just then, is to get quite a bit of options with what noise you use. And this is where hopefully it will get interesting. So let's have a play about with the color knob and heat knob and kind of the particular type of noise. That'll do for now. It's not the most interesting bit of noise, but we'll add some more interestingness to it later. We just want to make sure we definitely get a snare coming on. So what we're going to do now, we're going to turn on the donk bit and then try and balance the kind of the envelope of the noise with the donk. It still won't sound too much like a snare yet, but as we kind of do some other processing, which we'll come to, obviously, it'll sound more like a snare. So yeah, let's do it. Rightness. Cool. So that's kind of the basic bit of noise done. Let's call it noise. Again, we'll tweak it all later. We just need to kind of create the basic structure of the snare first, and then we can dial it all in, which would be a coolness in the brain. Right, so we have our basic donk and noise. We haven't done much with the attack yet. We'll leave the attack till the end or till the middle. I don't know where we are right now, but anyway, we're going to leave that for now. I want it sounding more like a proper snare. So what we're going to do is a few things. We need some sort of reverby type vibe, and then some sort of compression and limiting and distortion. So we got our snare group going on, the snare, or just snare. There you go, snare. Right, and so we're going to do, let's try it. Well, I know it'll work pretty well. Max for live, audio effect, convolution reverb pro. Because I'm pro. Right, I'm going to choose a default, or let's just double click it. That'll do just fine. Let's whack a limiter on the master just in case we get too out of control. Always a good idea, just in case you do something stupid. Limiter, we'll take that off at the end. Right, so we have our convolution reverb. Basically what this does, shall I explain convolution reverb? Broadly speaking, you got all these options. So you got like almost like a folder, and then you got all the options within the folder. Each one of these it's almost like an echo in a particular place. And then when you play your sound through it, it makes that sound kind of, by using that echo, sound like it's in the particular space. So if we choose one of those like made for drum ones, and we choose something that sounds like a snare, what that will do is it will make our thing that sounds a bit like a snare sound more like a snare, if that made any snare sense. So let's have a flick through these presets. Not really, presets is probably the wrong word. See how this is already starting to sound more like a snare? It's good, right? It's kind of subtle, but it's got some width to it. I like it. So that's a first bit of kind of reverb. Might put a bit more on later. What we're going to do now is give it a bit of compression and exciting and a bunch of coolness there. Now we're going to start off with some presets because I know Alloy 2 happens to have some nice ones, in particular for the snare. So we're going to jump through a few snare presets just because it saves me dialing in some settings. So yeah, let's give it a go. That's sounding alright. It's sounding a bit different than what I had initially had in mind, but it sounds quite kind of punchy. Albeit, yeah, a bit weird. We might change that in a bit. What we're going to do is whack a spectrum analyzer on the end of this chain, just because it's something that I always stick on, but whenever I group it, it takes it off. So cool. Pretty snappy. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. What we're going to do now is some cool shit. So we're going to make it a bit more interesting. So we're going to get Isotope Trash 2. And now what I want to do is some convolution reverb and then run it through some distortion. Now I've got two options here. Because if we go to graph, it goes trash, which is distortion, and convolve. I can go ba-doing, and now do convolve first, or I can run 2 instances of trash. Now, the only problem with this is I might get confused that I might forget that I've already changed the order because it doesn't change down here. So I'm going to try and remember. Let's see if I can. Right, convolve, and then we're going to choose probably one of the. So yeah, this is similar to the convolution. That's the same sort of idea as convolution reverb we had going for this Max for Live thing. Except it's got a whole bunch of different kind of echoes, or they're called impulses technically, kind of to choose from. So in this particular case, we've got a whole bunch of amps, so a bunch of like guitar amps and bass amps. Got some weird shit going on down here, but we're going to stick for the amps. That'll give it a bit of real vibe. I'm going to try and choose one that sounds nice and kind of fucks with this mix slider as well. So let's give it a go. That's kind of interesting. Oh, got some weird echo in my headphones. That got confusing. Right, anyway, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's kind of some weird subtleties to it. It kind of makes it feel really real, which is kind of the whole point, because it's quite hard with synthetic snares to make it sound real. The best way to make it sound real is reverb. That's the whole point of it, remember? Reverb puts it in a space, even if it's in a subtle way, which is pretty cool. So we've got a bit of that going on. Now we're going to have a play about with this trash bit. Yeah, let's have a go. Bit of distortion, basically. There you go. So it's sounding like something something. It's a bit strange. It's got a bit of a weird kind of spread of frequencies. Saying that, it could very well fit in with a track really nicely, just because of the various gaps. So if we have a look at this this like spectrum, kind of follow the mouse along. Got the big old donk, which will kind of cut through the mix super well. You've got the kind of noise area over here, and then you've got all these kind of gaps where you can stick the rest of your track. Because otherwise, what can happen, if you have a really, really, really full sounding snare, it can create problems with the mix, especially if it's a really big, long snare, just because it's kind of competing in terms of the mid-range with everything else. So it might work quite well. But what we're going to do is we're not just going to settle for it. We are going to have a kind of a dick about with the other settings, some of the alloy presets and stuff like that, just to kind of see if something a bit more interesting and a bit more kind of comes out. So let's have a bit of a go. I apologise. Yeah, just quickly explaining what I'm doing. Just tweaking a few settings. Remember I said I would try triangle, and triangle sounded a bit better than sine. I'm going to try a few of these other fundamental ways as well to see what happens. Remember what was happening before is by itself some of the harmonics, otherwise known as partials of the fundamental, which happen when you choose a non-sine, sounding a bit weird, but they kind of end up with all the kind of the distortion and the processing and the noise. Sometimes they kind of work quite nicely, which is what was going on with the triangle wave. Let's stick some more reverb and just make it a bit more interesting. I appreciate this is going on a bit longer than I had expected. Whatever, this is the process. Right, so let's choose another convolution reverb. It's sounding a bit empty, the snare. I kind of like it that way, just because I know it would fit in with the track really well. I'm not entirely convinced on the noise, but yeah, whatever. Right, so what we can do, or what we could do, no, yeah, let's do it this way. Same again, convolution reverb pro, and let's have a fuck about. I know what we can do. Right, okay, we've been spending too long doing that. Right, we're going to make it a bit more interesting. I think we should stick something in this kind of mid-rangey sort of thing. It doesn't have to dominate. We can still leave some space, but it's sounding a little bit empty. And it could just use EQ and shit, but fuck that. So, let's go over to samples and let's find some coolness. So, sound effects, Bible, impact. Let's find some interesting quote-unquote foley sounds, which are basically real-life sounds that you kind of put in subtly. Just makes it sound a bit realer, a bit more interesting. Noisier do this a lot, but you wouldn't know it, which means they're doing it well. let's try that. See what happens. So new track, branch tree. Right. Oh, and let's shape this a bit because at the moment it's all messy. Oh, that's kind of nice, kind of subtle. Let's call it tree. Right, let's put a little bit of something else in there. Let's have a dig through the same sample thing, find some other interesting shit. That'll do. A little bit of something subtle again. Remember, we don't want this to dominate because these are really messy sounds. Yeah, fundamentally, you want it to be really kind of synthesized, and the relevant bits like the donk and the noise bit need to be kind of dominating. Otherwise, it's not going to sound like a snare. There you go. Can't remember what's going on. Confused. Right. Is it still playing? What is going on? There you go. Cool. I got confused. Mental. Right. So yeah, couldn't remember what this was called. Chain link. Again, real subtle shit, but the subtlety is nice. But we could do. Let's make these two, the sound in particular, a bit wider. I think it's pretty mono right now. Let's double check. Cool. Again, real subtle, but yeah, what I did then is employed some of the convolution reverb from Trash again, except chose a bit of a interesting kind of impulse, the liquid tail. Spread it out with the stereo effect, and then moved the width across as well. Left it as full mix. That means even though it was kind of real quiet, like minus 47.8 dB. Meter's barely going up. You can definitely hear it. That kind of subtlety just makes it sound really real because it's fundamentally it's a chain link fence, which is a real thing. Yeah, so it just kind of makes the sound a bit real. You don't really know what it is you're hearing, but you know, yeah, that's a real sound. That's not just some synthesized piece of shit. So let's do one more double check. A lot of the time, if you just hear the same, I keep getting text messages, keep hearing the same. Me not really changing anything. What I'm doing is something that's always a good idea, and is listening to it at a whole bunch of different volumes. Because at different volumes, you hear different frequencies and you hear it in a different way. Look up your Fletcher Munson or Molson. Fletcher Munson, I think it is. Fletcher Munson curves. Just because it kind of shows you, broadly speaking, what I just told you about frequencies sounding different at different volumes. So you need to be aware, kind of, if it's quiet, can you still hear the relevant bits? Which bits can you hear? If it's loud, which bits you hearing? Does it kind of work? All that kind of stuff, which is cool. This video's going on a long time, but you know what? That's what happens when you're actually making a sound, and it does take a long time, and I'm explaining what I'm doing as well, which takes more timeage. Right, let's give it one more kind of once over. I think we're nearly there. Just kind of, we haven't really done much with the attack of the sound, but can't really be asked. Still sounds all right. I know a lot of the time it's quite nice to have some sort of thing leading into it. I know people put like reverse sweeps and reverse snares going into their snares, kind of real subtly. But I can't be asked with that. Still sounds pretty interesting. Not all snares have that kind of pre-bit, so should be good. I know what we might do. I'll audition it a few more times, and then what we might do is still give it a bit of an attack. So yeah, let's give it a quick listen. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to try and give it a bit of an attack, see if it works. So we're going to go to Donk, open up FM8, and this guy, operators, we're going to have E operator or kind of modulating F. I'm guessing maybe 20 to 30 is probably about right. Fuck it, sign or do just like that. Let's go to E, and let's make this a bit like, let's pull that down and bring it all the way in. So we're just making E basically incredibly short. See how it's just like mental short? Can you even drag it shorter than that? That might be mental. Good. That would have been too mental. And then we have, yeah, E here modulating F like so. Let's double check it's doing it what we should by just dragging this up and down. Let's give it a go. I can definitely hear it doing stuff, but it's not that obvious. Let's give it a bit more of a go. Fuck it. That'll do. Right. It's a bit of an interesting snare, I'd say. It's not super standard, not super different. It's definitely got a weird spread of frequencies. Certainly if you see this sort of shape, got a big old gap here. But you know what? I reckon that'll work really nicely in a song, actually, just because you can just free up all this room for whatever, synths, vocals, all the kind of important stuff. A lot of interestingness can happen in this zone. So we've got a kind of relevant noise, bit of subtlety, and you've got the massive donk, so you don't need to be boosting that later on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's your snare. I'll play it one more time, just in case you haven't heard it a million times already. Actually, I'll tell you what we do. Let's bounce it out, just so we can make sure it looks like what we'd want it to look like. Oh fuck, it's in a group. How do we flatten this shit? Oh, nightmare. Oh, this is why I don't normally put it in a group. Oh, flatten, stupid. Right, What we're going to do now? We could record it. I hate recording. It doesn't really work very well. Fuck it. Let's give it a go. So let's record it. New channel. Let's route this into... Just turn that one off for now. 12 in... I was going to fucking hear a bit of the mic as well. Right, let's turn that off. Still playing the mic. Right, this is a disaster. Auto. Oh, audio from maybe? There you go. This one. Oh shit, wrong one. This one maybe? Why is it not working? Right. Oh, right. I think it's working. Can you hear me? I hope you can. Right. And let's record this. Oh, stop. This thing keeps fucking up. Right. Yeah, my mic's not going into it. Right. Hopefully that works. Let's give it a bit of a test. Right, let's have a look. There you go. It's this guy over here. And you know what? That looks like a good snare to me. Yeah, banging. Stoked on that waveform. So what we got, let's give a bit of a waveform analysis. Let's chop that bit off. And let's get really accurate with our fades and shit as well. Pull this over. You know what? Why don't we start it here? Or should we start it here? There you go. Snare. There you go, it's a snare. Right. So what we got what's looking good. For a start, it looks nice and chunky, which is always good. We've got that fundamental, what's it called? Like fundamental note, the donk. That kind of really obvious waveform that I remember we looked at with the dead mouse snare. Or the Zephyr transfer, whatever you want to call it, snare. We've got the kind of tail, quite a long tail, but you know what? That was part of the vibe we were going for. And got some interesting stuff happening as well. We've got all these little bits, bit of stereo shit, and it's a bit more interesting than normal. And it's also nice and see how it's kind of pretty flat along the top. That means it's going to be thick and loud, and it's going to really stand out. And you don't need to do any compression or anything later on. It's already compressed. The attack is looking okay, not amazing, but you know what? It will be fine. Wonder what would happen if we did this. No, that's stupid. Let's go back to what it was. It's probably fine. If I had a bit more time, because it is going on forever, I'd probably kind of fix the attack. But you know what? Who cares? There you go. We have our little snare. Let's play it again. Lovely stuff. Right. This has been an incredibly long video, but you know what? That's what happens when you try to explain what you're doing and you kind of create something. This is how long shit takes, basically. There's no super shortcuts. And yeah, there you go. Hope you learnt something or something, whatever. Been multiplier. Boom. Stop record. Finally. It's take forever to upload.